And welcome to another Enough Already podcast. I'm Fingers Malloy. She is Tracy Connors. Well, Tracy, a little later in the broadcast, Pat Caddell will be here.
Excellent.
Tracy, I have a cold.
Aw, man.
Yeah, it's terrible. But I have to say, I went to the store last night and got some NyQuil.
Mm-hmm.
I made a decision last night. I think I'm going to go ahead and just take NyQuil for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Even when I don't have a cold. I mean, like every night.
Why is that?
I can see how people get hooked on this stuff. Can you make meth out of NyQuil? What do they make meth out of?
I'm not up on my meth cooking.
You're not up on meth cooking?
No.
Good God, I was laying in bed last night feeling like $1 million. I could see why. I should just start. I could see why they ID'd me for it. I got more of a hassle buying cold medicine last night at the store than I do a fifth of Jack Daniels.
What about voting?
Oh, voting? Are you kidding me? They handed me Jack Daniels as I went to vote.
No, you guys don't have ID laws in Indiana, do you, for voting?
Yes, we do.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, I was asked for my ID.
Did you scream that that's racist? I do that whenever I get the opportunity. So if I was buying cold medicine and they card me, I just go, that's racist, right? And it usually elicits a blank stare. And then I get to teach everybody about how silly it is to claim that asking me for ID is racist.
I didn't.
In any context.
I didn't throw a fit because I was hopped up on NyQuil. I think it's my new thing. Screw whiskey.
It's probably less calories.
Probably.
Good thing.
Tastes better than Fireball.
You gonna put it over ice and just sit by the fire?
Yes, I will. As a matter of fact.
Imagine what kind of mixing you can do with this. What kind of cocktails could you come up with?
Oh my gosh, the possibilities are endless, Tracy. You could come up with holiday NyQuil drinks.
Yep.
Oh.
Ugh, so disgusting. Just eating Jell-O shots with NyQuil.
No, actually, the stuff I got last night was the generic version of some sort of cold medicine. I don't even know if it was NyQuil. All I know is it was nighttime cold medicine. Mm-hmm. And it took me back to being 8 years old and getting a tablespoonful of Robitussin, which has to be the worst tasting medicine in the world. Maybe they've changed it.
No.
I'm 45 now, so it's been quite a few years since I had taken Robitussin. I mean, maybe they have a cherry Robitussin now, a Fireball Robitussin. I don't know.
Yeah, they're trying to get children hooked. That's what the flavored stuff is all about.
That's right. First you get them hooked on the flavored cough medicine, then you get them hooked on the flavored e-cigs. Next thing you know, heroin country. That's how it starts. It's all a gateway, Tracy Connors. You know it. It is. I know it. The Russians know it.
Well, the Russians know everything now. They've hacked all of us.
It's true. I didn't realize.
They got you and I to vote for Trump. It's amazing.
The Russians, let's see, the Russians hacked into the DNC, right? They sent out...
Allegedly.
The Russians sent out the Obamacare letters.
Yes.
The Russians made Hillary Clinton not campaign in Wisconsin after the primary.
They made her collapse on 9/11.
That's right.
Remember, they poisoned her. Don't you remember in seriousness? I can't remember. I think it was the Boston Globe, maybe, that propped up that wacko doctor that was like, I think she's been poisoned by the Russians.
Right. That's right.
And they took that seriously.
For a hot second. Yeah.
Yeah. It has the earmarks of the whatever poison it is that the KGB is known for using. Well, that's smart.
Yeah.
If the KGB has the signature poison, you think they're going to use it on Hillary? How dumb is this?
How do people keep catching us? I don't understand.
Turn them into Zorro. You just leave it, KGB slashed across our chests everywhere they go.
Yeah, and then the KGB end up hiding Hillary Clinton's Robitussin from her.
Yes.
Wow.
I just picture them sitting around the Kremlin. I assume they're somewhere in there where they, like the sit room or something. The Russian version where they have televisions and they just have them tuned to all American media networks at this point in time. And they're playing a drinking game where they drink every time the Russians are brought up and just howl with laughter.
Yeah, I envision that I don't know what they call the new Russian KGB. It's something else. It's not the KGB anymore, but I envision.
No, did they go back to the NKVD?
I think so, something like that. I envision the head of we're just gonna keep calling him the KGB in Moscow, looking exactly like Dr. Evil, in between wanting sharks with laser beams on them. He's thinking of new ways to hack for 2018 and 2020 to affect the U.S. elections. This is fantastic. You could not have wished for a better scenario before the election. These people actually are going to go running around. You think, oh well, there's got to be some sort of introspection. There's no way that they can just maybe for the first week they'll say, oh, it's because America is sexist. I mean, that's what I thought. All the think pieces were going to be after the election. Well, the United States just wasn't ready for a female president. That's why she lost. That's what I thought it was going to be. And you've seen a little bit of that. But the denial. Everybody who voted for Trump is racist, and it's the Russians.
Yes.
Okay. Please run with that for another 2 years.
And I love this, that the Russians are trying to destabilize our democracy. So we're going to run around and act as if they've completed that mission by squealing about it on television all day. You morons. You just handed them apparently what they wanted, according to you. And for the record, Fingers, the new Russian intelligence agencies are called the FSB, the FSO, the GRU, and the SVR.
Okay.
SVR. So the Foreign Intelligence Service is the SVR, but the main one is the GRU. And I believe that, too, they're blaming. I think I've seen stories about the GRU did all of this.
But what if it was a rogue Russian? That's what I want. Can we... I think it's dangerous to blame all of Russia if you just had a rogue Russian out there hacking and giving all the information to WikiLeaks that the rogue Russian.
Well, Julian Assange is jumping up and down saying that this wasn't coming from the Russians.
Oh, well, Julian Assange is dead, I thought.
Well, that's true, too.
The Russians poisoned him. Of course.
After he helped him out.
Yeah.
Just to keep his mouth shut. Yeah.
If anything, it would be the Clinton Foundation. Does the Clinton Foundation have a signature poison that we know of?
Oh.
Or do they use the heart attack gun?
It's probably heart attack gun. I would guess.
Oh, this is delicious. And it's getting better and better as we get closer to the inauguration. You're seeing these leftist wacko groups talking about how they're going to disrupt the inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
of course.
They're throwing around that this is a coup. I mean, this is beautiful. I mean,
Keith Olbermann's back and losing his goddamn mind, announcing we're at war with Russia.
Oh.
I mean, these people stun me. One of their big deals was that Trump was scary and he shouldn't be anywhere near nuclear codes. And now they're telling us that Putin, who they find terrifying as well, who also has his own nuclear button kids, is responsible for all of this stuff. This does not strike me as a wise strategy. But that's why I keep thinking these guys really wanted war with Russia. And Hillary was a guarantee of this with her stupid no-fly zone over Syria that the media never bothered to explain to anybody is ludicrous. And would most certainly start a war with Russia since they're the ones that are flying missions in Syria right now. And yet now she's lost. But we can't give up this war stuff. So how do we keep that going? Oh, I know. Let's just say that they were the ones responsible for Trump, even though the hack of the DNC happened before he had won the primary. Mm-hmm. There are emails within the WikiLeaks between Clinton campaign operatives talking about how much they would like it if Trump was the nominee because they thought he would be easy to take out.
How'd that work out?
So are they agents? Yeah, it worked out really well. And I think I guess we don't know when Podesta got hacked, but obviously the DNC stuff happened before Trump because that was coming out right before their convention happened. So it had to have happened during the primary.
Oh.
And how much money are we going to waste on congressional hearings over this stuff?
Well, that's what you're already seeing. You know, the Tillerson, we're already hearing his ties with Russia disqualify him.
Yeah, they gave him some medal. The Soviets gave everybody medals. Medal of friendship.
Don't you have a medal?
We give you Rex Tillerson. Yes.
They gave me a reset button.
I voted for Trump medal. Oh, nice.
Except they spelled it correctly. It's nice. It's beautiful.
In Cyrillic or in English?
Both.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I wear it around my neck like Flava Flav.
Like Flavor Flav?
Yeah.
Nice.
Great. It's fashionable.
Certainly.
Oh, my God. But, okay, so I have to ask you, Tracy. Mm-hmm. The big news coming out of Trump Tower this week was Kanye's visit.
Unbelievable.
Game changer?
Totally. Changes everything.
I'm trying to, the inauguration is what, 5 weeks away? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to piece together what kind of celebration it will be and who will be performing at the inaugural. And, God, they have so many parties. Each state has their own ball, and it'll be interesting to see how many of these Trump actually hits. But the entertainment that evening, I mean, I've heard rumors or reports that Elton John may perform.
Oh, Trump did go to his wedding.
Well, there you go. So you got maybe Elton John, maybe Kanye. I'm a huge Kanye fan, as you know, Tracy. I love all of his tunes. Can't get enough. But to see him at Trump Tower with Donald Trump, incredibly exciting. Really. Really.
Well, he's the kind of whack job you want on your side because he's just completely unfiltered as Trump is. So now that he's fully in the camp, he will be a good attack dog.
He's like Roseanne Arnold.
Yes, who's now a bar again.
Is she a bar?
Yeah, she and Tom Arnold broke up years ago.
They did?
Yes. Didn't he bilk her for a bunch of her money, too?
Oh, I don't know what to believe in anymore.
Oh, come on. And you haven't paid attention to her, I guess, this election cycle. She was firmly in the Trump camp, and Hillary is the devil.
Oh, wow.
She's woke, She's been red-pilled.
Well, I don't know. Well, at least Alan Thicke's still alive, so...
That's true.
Don't tell me that anything happened to him, and then my whole world will be shattered.
No, Mr. Seaver's still with us.
Oh, good. But I'm really surprised. Kanye just got out of the hospital. Mm-hmm. He went to Trump Tower. I'm surprised the Kardashian van didn't come around the corner, throw him in, and take him to Bellevue.
Well, I think they were busy because I'm not sure if you saw this on the one gossip site you like to visit, TMZ, but Lamar Odom is getting his own reality show now. So they might have been in meetings. Yeah.
Where's it? The E network?
I assume.
Do people care about? He was a bit player on it. He's a good basketball player, but do people care about Lamar Odom?
Don't you understand? You can be made to care about these things. There's no escaping the Kardashians. Although Kanye came without Kim.
Well, I, read reports that there's trouble in paradise there.
Well, those are always going to be floating around just to get people to read them. And they were successful with you, apparently.
Yes,
they were. I
think
that's just Russian propaganda. They want you to believe that America's most stable power couple, since Brangelina is no more, Kimmy Cakes, as they like to call her on the gossip sites, and Kanye are going strong, fingers.
Kimmy Cakes?
Mm-hmm.
Kimmy Cakes.
Correct.
Well, no, from what I read, Kimmy Cakes is upset with Kanye and his mental breakdown because it diverted his attention
They didn't
from
film
her.
it?
Yeah, there's that too. But it diverted attention away from her being kidnapped in Paris.
That happened a month before he went nuts.
Yeah, she's still traumatized by it, Tracy.
Well, I can understand that.
Have you ever been kidnapped in Paris before?
No.
Without any cameras around? It's incredibly traumatizing.
That's the real tragedy.
But, apparently he still isn't holding her hand over this. And it's been what? It's been 2 months? 3 months since
At
that
least,
happened?
I think, yeah.
And Kanye's selfishly out going to Trump Tower instead of rubbing Kim Kardashian's feet.
He had to come by and talk about life, as Trump said.
Oh, how would you like to be a fly on the wall for that conversation? You got Trump and Kanye sitting over a magnificent taco bowl that you can get at Trump Tower talking about life. Must have been outstanding to listen to. Oh,
I wonder who else was in the room or if they threw everybody out.
Well, I would think Bannon would be in there.
Probably. But I don't know. And it looked like Kanye was traveling with a fairly small posse.
Yeah.
I only saw one other gentleman with him.
And this happened Tuesday, right?
Correct.
Taco Bowl Tuesday at Trump Tower. I'm telling you, they had a Taco Bowl summit.
Yeah, but Kanye had been absent from Twitter since October 21st when he wished Kim a happy birthday. And then he popped up yesterday and he let the world know, I wanted to meet with Trump today to discuss multicultural issues. These issues included bullying, supporting teachers, modernizing curriculums, and violence in Chicago. He said, I feel it is important to have a direct line of communication with our future president if we truly want change. Final tweet, #2024.
So maybe he was getting together with Trump to talk about their transition in 2024 when Kanye was president.
Initially he had said 2020, but I guess he's going to let Trump take 2 terms. So you can see how this all works out.
Yeah. It's the amazing power of the Taco Bowl.
It is nice, though, that some celebrities are now coming over. It honestly shocked me during the entire campaign that more of them didn't side with him, because how many of them know him?
Yeah.
After all these years. I mean, The Celebrity Apprentice had multiple seasons, I think upwards of 10. So every year you've got a handful there.
Yeah, but to be fair, how many celebrities are really on Celebrity Apprentice? I mean...
Are you telling me that Dennis Rodman's on a celebrity?
Okay.
LaToya Jackson?
Dustin Diamond. Was Dustin Diamond ever on Celebrity Apprentice?
I don't know. I want to say that Stephen Baldwin was.
Yes.
Bret Michaels was.
Yeah. Well, now
Joan
I think what you're doing now is you're naming all the people who will perform at the inauguration party.
Oh, man. We can hope. Penn Jillette was, and he was very critical of Trump during the election.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
I like Penn.
I do too.
I don't know what kind of act Dennis Rodman could put together at the lab, but who knows?
He could bring over the North Korean performers that he loves so much. You could have some of that North Korean opera kind of stuff that Kim Jong-il invented himself.
But I don't,
single-handed.
At this point, I don't think that he could talk Madonna into performing.
Oh, she's such a mess. I don't know if you saw Camille Paglia just ripped her to shreds.
No, I didn't see that. I wish I would have.
Oh, in only the way that she can. It was in the Daily Mail, I believe, yesterday. Just destroyed her. Because Madonna came out and was whining that women weren't helping her early in her career.
Oh, my God.
And Paglia had announced in the early 90s that Madonna was the epitome of new feminism. This is what it should be. You know, instead of being these dowdy, man-hating, hideous women, that you should embrace beauty and glamour and all this stuff. And she's always kind of idolized her and used her as a model for what new feminism should be. And so I don't know where Madonna appeared bemoaning all this stuff. Well, like, no other women helped me in my career. Me. So Paglia just bitch slapped her from saying, okay, well, you know what, early in your career, I had wanted to interview her, and she said, who set the interview up? Esquire in 1994. Esquire asked Paglia to interview her for a cover story, and Madonna rejected the proposal. So she says, and this is quoting from Paglia, this is in the Daily Mail, instead they got the geriatric novelist Norman Mailer, who knew nothing about Madonna or popular music, with predictably vapid results. Then HBO wanted to film Madonna and me conversing at a restaurant. Again, she rejected it. And Penthouse, too, proposed a joint cover story that was shot down. So, and then she goes on to say that she's basically lost all of her artistic credibility. She stinks. And she's become a cringe-making panache of ratty blonde hair extensions and artificially swollen cheeks, obscuring the magnificent classic bone structure that made her one of the most photogenic celebrities of the 90s. In her struggles to stay relevant, Madonna has debased herself with adolescent, pitiful, inept Instagrams that cannot compete with Rihanna's brilliant work in that genre. I love that. I didn't know that Instagram now constitutes an entire new genre, but she can't compete. Yes. So she says, instead of lugubrious rants and hysterical recriminations, Madonna should try a little honest self-critique.
Well, I mean,
so
what can you do? Well, no, go ahead. Finish.
No, I was just saying, she said that she lost her edge really when she first started out. Her art was inspired by her rebellion against Catholicism. Mm-hmm. And she grew up in a household similar to Paglia's, both Roman Catholic, Italian Roman Catholics. And she said then she switched over to Hollywood chic Kabbalah with its easygoing ethic and pat bromides, and she lost her creative drive. She seems to lack humility and persistence that are required for the study of serious art. She collects art for display, but obviously has not broadened or deepened her imagination. And she says she looks ridiculous, which she does. And she's running around dressed like a complete trash. So, yeah, it's worth a read.
Well, to be fair to Madonna,
okay.
The whole Instagram.
Is that a requirement?
Well, yeah, listen, it's got to be difficult to try to be relevant on Instagram when you were publishing books in the 90s with a bullwhip up your ass walking down the street. Right. I mean, what more can you... as far as photographs go, what could she do that she hasn't already done? You know, if Instagram is a new, some sort of entertainment genre, what... She tapped out 20 years ago when it comes to anything new.
Right.
You know, so I don't know. But what was the last hit she had? I think it was that music song that was awful.
That whole album had some hits. Then there was something in the last 5 years, I want to say, she came out with another album that maybe had a hit on it. I don't recall having to listen to any of it. So,
but at the end of the day, she's just going to turn into Cher, isn't she?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you mean she's going to take up residency in Las Vegas?
Yeah, and really not come out with any new music. She'll live on, maybe she'll have one hit in her 60s, and everybody like, oh, Madonna's back, and people, kids in their, in high school and in their early 20s are going to be like, I don't want to listen to this old lady. What is this? My parents liked her. Why is she still making music? And then she'll be in Vegas and tweeting like Barbara Streisand every election that women are getting screwed and women can't get ahead in the business while she sits on her $180 million in cash that she's made over the past 4 decades. Okay.
Life is rough.
I'm telling you. Especially when you have pictures out there of a bullwhip up your ass. It'll happen. But no, Madonna, I never understood the draw there. She doesn't have that great of a voice. Mm-hmm. The music, okay, some of it's kind of catchy, but this is before your time, but growing up in the 80s and seeing like girls running around dressed like her and everything is like, oh, okay, I guess. I expected it to last like 2 months, but I guess her real genius was she kept reinventing herself, but it's really kind of hard to keep reinventing yourself and staying relevant when you hit it big in your early 20s, and now you're, how old is she, 77?
Yes.
It's got to be hard.
I think she's 58.
Oh, she's 58.
No, I don't know. I was old enough to get in on that as a kid in the 80s. I appreciated it. It was fun.
Okay.
It's a chick thing.
I guess. But
Kanye just tweeted.
Oh?
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's
yeah,
okay.
he's got a copy of the Time magazine with Trump on the front, and signed by Trump. And it says, "To Kanye, you are a great underlined friend. Thanks." But he underlined "great" with the T cross on the word "thanks," and then Donald J. Trump. Amazing. It was tweeted 2 minutes ago. It's already been retweeted 2.3 thousand times. He does have more Twitter followers than Trump. Oh, man.
I look forward to them doing buddy pictures together, like they're cops. And
Oh, sure.
yeah, it'd be great.
Well, someone did a remix of Flashing Lights. Do you know that Kanye song?
No.
Oh, God.
I mean, sure.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure that you
I'm
do,
a
actually.
huge Kanye fan. I can't get enough Kanye.
But they cut in yesterday's little weird photo op where Kanye wasn't talking while the press is just lobbing question after question after question at him. And he's just like, I just want to take pictures. And they cut that in with Trump dancing to, what was that song? Hotline Blog or whatever, that stupid Drake song that he danced to on Saturday Night Live. And Kanye dancing. And then back to them in the lobby at Trump Tower.
Is there going to be a new Saturday Night Live this week? Because you know damn well they're going to do the whole Kanye.
Probably.
Big cold.
Well, and the other big story was that Anna Wintour came in to meet with Trump.
Oh?
This is the part where you say, who's Anna Wintour, right?
No, I was just going to roll with it.
Yeah, no,
As
she's
I'm
Vogue.
Googling. Anna.
Vogue. She's huge.
Anna Winthorpe?
Wintour.
Oh, Wintour.
Wintour. Anna Wintour.
Well, everybody knows that she's a journalist and editor over at Vogue.
Oh, so Tour. Yeah, Vogue.
Any
She
straight
is
man
Vogue.
knows that.
When she runs with Kimmy, Cakes, and Kanye,
Okay.
there was a big thing that Kim wanted the cover of Vogue, so they got it for her. But she's a fashion icon, all this stuff. And, all these fashion designers have come out and said, I'm not going to dress Melania Trump.
Yeah.
As if she gives a shit and doesn't already have a closet full of every dress she's ever going to want to wear. But maybe
Right.
she wants some new stuff. Anyway, it's your loss as far as I'm concerned. Oh, you don't want to dress the first lady?
It's my loss?
Yeah. Yeah. Bye. And so Anna Wintour came to Trump Tower yesterday and spent a half an hour with Donald.
Oh.
Which is fascinating.
I
Because
see.
what she does, the rest of the industry follows.
Well, I see that she apologized for trashing Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. She probably wants a Vogue cover with the first family. So one of the pieces I read, I think it was in Celebritty or whatever the hell that blog is called, were like, oh, he probably cut a deal that she has to support Ivanka's line and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, fake news. We're just going to make stuff up now. You have no idea what they talked about. All we know is that they met for half an hour. And she apologized.
Well.
Yeah. Well, she gave Hillary a ton of support and probably a ton of cash. But she's smart.
So this
But
means
she'd come out.
I'm not going to be able to dress Melania?
No, sorry.
Damn. It's going to be nothing but
Yeah.
wet T-shirts. So
Oh, I was going to say, I thought it was going to be nothing but Harley T-shirts.
wet Harley T-shirts. Well,
Yes.
America loses once again.
Yeah.
Just trying to
Nope,
make
they're
America
falling in
great.
line. The celebrities are falling in line. They're getting this. You're stuck with us for 4 years, kids.
Well, no, maybe not. We may get the Electoral College may get a CIA briefing that will change everything.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. And what are they calling themselves? Oh, the Hamilton Electors. Right? Because they've all been to see that wonderful musical. That's why they picked that name. The majority of them are out of Colorado, which means that they are Hillary electors, because that's how this works. Whoever wins your state, then that's the slate of electors that goes. And they've been kicking up a storm over this, and they're joined by that one rogue guy down in Texas who some fun information was released on him this week over at Got News, including that he had filed bankruptcy and then shortly thereafter, had signed up for Ashley Madison Premium Services.
Well, who hasn't?
Always a good way to go. Right. I'm sure bankruptcy court just overlooks that. You could magically find $275 to go cheat on your wife. So the Hamilton Electors, based out of Colorado, got a smackdown yesterday when a judge ruled that they could be replaced. So I want to see them just pulled from their perches ASAP and replaced. Well, their whole deal was, we want the freedom to vote for somebody aside from Hillary. Well, who do you want to vote for? A Republican. Which Republican? Not Donald Trump. By the way, if you'd like to give us money, we've set up a 527. Here's the link.
Good God.
Yeah, well, after they saw Jill Stein rake in what I was told yesterday by CBS, you'll love this, because you know how I, unlike most women, I can do math. It's true. We're not,
Where can everyone find you on the internet, Tracy?
You can find me on Twitter at Tracy L. Connors. Show me that your math skills are better than mine. I'm just talking simple math here.
Okay.
I did get an A in calc my senior year of college, or my senior year of high school, but
you.
I know I was really good at that stuff. So anyway, yesterday CBS News ran a story about what Jill Stein's going to do with the leftover money from her efforts. So here's a paragraph. At latest count, Stein raised $7.33 million for the recount in just 2.5 weeks from more than 161 donors, 61,000. Don't get caught up in that number. Just remember the $7.33 million.
That's the important number.
The campaign's latest estimate of costs puts the total recount related expenses at $7.4 million. So now I've given you those two numbers, $7.33 million, $7.4 million. Which of those two numbers is larger than the other?
Well, it would be the recount cost, of course. $7.4 million.
Yes. So there would be no remainder, right?
Right.
Oh, no. According to CBS News, meaning the campaign would have approximately $300,000 left. Oh? So 7.4 minus 7.3, or I'm sorry, 7.33 minus 7.4 equals plus 300,000. Nobody even maths anymore.
It's overrated.
Like, this is just, it's stupid. Does nobody edit? Just an editor should be able to do that. That's not complex math. I know it says million after it, but they didn't put all the zeros to confuse your little brain. It's 7.4 and 7.33. These are the two numbers we're dealing with.
I don't want to waste my time with all that math learning.
Well, sorry, kids, you're going to look foolish just like CBS did. And I haven't gotten an answer from them, even though I posed that question. If 7.4 is greater than 7.3, how do you have a leftover? Anyway, so my contention is that these electors out in Colorado, the Hamilton types, figured, ooh, the money train's rolling. Let's get in on that. So they set up a 725, which is the Swift boat vets had set up. This is before super PACs came along. So they were raising funds, and they have a pretty spiffy website with a bunch of old white people holding up signs. That's the new thing. We write a weepy sign and take pictures of ourselves holding them. So that's a collection of those, and then a big donate button. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with the money, aside from write letters. They're saying, we demand to see the CIA's information. Because why? We should all see it. I'm fascinated. I really want to see what the CIA's got.
You're never going to see what the CIA has got, though, because then that would end the discussion.
You think?
Yeah.
But fingers, 17 agencies. Really? I've had that thrown at me several times now. Do you know where that number comes from?
David Brock?
No. No.
No, I don't know.
James Clapper is the head, for all intents and purposes, of 17 different intelligence agencies, which includes the Coast Guard Intelligence, Army Intelligence, Navy Intelligence, Department of Energy, which seems rather odd, So when James Clapper comes out and says, we believe that the Russians interfered, that automatically means that all 17 agencies that he oversees agree.
Oh, well, there you go.
Even though I believe only 2 of them have looked into it. But we keep playing this game.
Energy hasn't looked into this?
I don't think so. It's weird, sure. Right? Coast Guard, not interested. I mean, I don't know, unless they have a server set up on L. Ron Hubbard's boat that floated around the Mediterranean for a couple decades to avoid paying income taxes.
Oh,
I don't know why the Coast Guard would be involved at all. But yeah, no, 17, take it to the bank. I hear it at least twice a day, or read it at least twice a day, as if that's all you need to know. 17, done, move along. Like 97% of scientists agree.
Well, it does make for a good talking point.
Sure. And they don't anticipate anybody ever looking it up.
Right.
And so I got into it with a lefty, and he's like, so you think you know better than 17 intelligence agencies? And I said, this is where they get that number. Oh, okay. But here's something that says that once the head of all those agencies decides, it's basically the same as all those agencies deciding. Okay.
Was it a Vox piece that he sent you?
No, I actually sent him something from PolitiFact, I think, or Snopes, where I said, just read this and read between the lines. Because they're rating this claim, the 17 agency claim is true, and then they have to go through all these hoops to make it so. So like we all know that those sites are complete frauds to back up whatever is coming out of Democrats' mouths.
Yeah.
And then speaking of, you're reminding me of that David Brock interview that David Brock sat down with Glenn Thrush, known as the Fedora on the internet, who's now off to the New York Times. Even though he's in WikiLeaks telling them, even though I'm a hack already, I'm okay with that. Can you guys fact check these articles I want to write? Thanks. Love your work. Bye. Now he's going to be a White House correspondent for the New York Times. So he hosts the Politico podcast, and he had David Brock on this week. And do you want to know why Hillary Clinton lost?
Well, I think I know how or why Hillary Clinton lost. According to CNN, it was the Russians. Is it the Russians? Is it the Russians?
That played something into it. But I think if you take Brock in his entirety over this hour-long thing, it was basically that they wouldn't listen to him on his media strategy.
Oh, of course.
Yes. So he believed that their strategy should have been to frame Clinton as the underdog in a society filled with, and I'm quoting him on this, rampant sexism and media bias.
Oh, yeah. That's Morning in America again.
Yes. He starts out this interview, by saying the idea that Hillary was a bad candidate with no message is completely bunk.
Oh, my
I really should go back and edit this with a laugh track behind it. Because it's quite stunning. He's furious at the New York Times because they were given an advance copy of Clinton Cash and started publishing stories based on the investigative work that Peter Schweizer had done. And they misrepresented things. They were trashing the foundation. This is ridiculous. They should have been iced out from then on, is what he says.
Of course.
That the New York Times has been biased against the Clintons since the 90s. And his media strategy would have been not to make them love you, but to make them fear you. And you're telling me that she didn't have the media in line? Do you recall when she was walking in that parade and they had them roped in? A moving corral.
She went for, what was it, 11 months without a press conference?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Then she disappeared, as you say, for basically the entire month of August.
Yeah.
Yep. And he was furious. Brock was furious that she ever apologized for the email stuff. That was a non-issue in his mind.
Okay.
She should have just said it was allowed, and that's the end of the story.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay. I think it still would have haunted her.
Oh, I think it would have haunted her too. But would her husband have apologized for that?
No, that's the thing. So they weren't listening to Bill, and they weren't listening to the genius David Brock and his multi-pronged attack. This man, he raised $75 million
Unbelievable.
in 2016 to run all his little organizations. And I was reading a piece in the Daily Beast about him. This is from April of this year. So he runs the PAC Correct the Record. And they had all these mercenaries, these social media mercenaries out fighting people online. And this is funny to me because PACs and super PACs are not supposed to be able to coordinate with campaigns.
Right.
So listen to this line. This is due to FEC loopholes. The Sunlight Foundation, which is a watchdog organization, their person named Libby Watson found that this year, the Correct the Record can openly coordinate with the Clintons campaign, despite rules that typically disallow political campaigns from working directly with the PACs. So here's a quote from her. Super PACs aren't supposed to coordinate with candidates. The whole reasoning behind the Supreme Court decision in Citizens United rests on PACs being independent. But Correct the Record claims it can coordinate. It's totally not clear. It's not totally clear what their reasoning is, but it seems to be that material posted on the internet for free, like blogs, doesn't count as an independent expenditure. So how they get the fact that she says they can openly coordinate from her saying that they seem to have decided that they can coordinate, therefore it's allowable by law, is just unbelievable to me.
Wow.
So, yeah, because I heard him talking about this. I was like, wait a minute, isn't Correct the Record a super PAC? They're not allowed. And he's talking about how he's on the phone with Robbie Mook all the time, fighting with him because he wanted them to push back. Brock wanted them to push back on attacks on the Clinton Foundation, which does nothing but good work.
That's true.
And Mook and Podesta were like, knock it off. Stop talking about the Clinton Foundation. So he's hopping mad. But guess what? He's out to panhandle for more cash in the coming year because he wants to build the left's Breitbart. The left certainly doesn't have enough outlets for their information to flow through.
Oh. Gotta hand it to him. Mm-hmm. Even though in the WikiLeaks email dump, there was a conversation with Podesta, and I can't remember. You and I talked about this last night.
You're a tandem.
Yeah, you realize David Brock's crazy, right?
Yes. Yes, and Thrush brought that up in the interview, and he said, have you spoken to them? Because Podesta also tweeted out at some point, Brock was really heavily pushing the campaign to attack Bernie Sanders on his health during the primary. And Podesta came on Twitter and said, David, chill out with this health stuff. And so he got publicly smacked down by Podesta. But according to him, they're fine. They're buddies again.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, the first Media Matters office was in the Center for American Progress building. They gave him office space.
Wow. And now he could raise $73 million for his media.
75.
75. Which, I'm told, is a larger number than 73 million.
Yes, he probably has leftover. Oh, and speaking of leftover, Hillary Clinton is throwing a party on December 15th.
Where? We should crash
at the Plaza Hotel. We're not getting it. You don't, yeah. Harley's T-shirts and cargo shorts not allowed at the Plaza. Sorry. It will cost $100,000.
Wait a minute. I've been to the Plaza on many of an occasion with Harley shirts and cargo shorts.
You're talking about this party.
You're talking about the Plaza on Fremont Street, right, in Vegas. That's where the that's where the big party is.
Yes, that one. So
I saw a Don Ho impersonator perform there once. Sang a great version of Tiny Bubbles. It was fantastic.
So I guess this is the thank you party to all the donors.
I thought they already threw that.
No. It's upcoming. They've been teasing it. As they say. So, and they're using $100,000 that's left over, excess campaign funds. So apparently in their world, they had 7.4 and spent 7.3. So anyway, which got me thinking, do you remember her 2008 campaign and how much debt there was?
Yeah, it wasn't part of the agreement for regarding Hillary to campaign for Barack that he would help pay off her debt.
It was for her to be Secretary of State.
Oh,
that he would have to help her retire the debt. And so I did a quick little Google search. Guess how long it took her to pay that off? She had, according to what I read, she had $25 million in campaign debt after her 2008 run.
Did she pay it off?
How long do you think it would take somebody that makes, I don't know, $250,000
well,
a speech?
Course, in the real world, she would never pay it off, or because she's like what? She's 90 years old. So, yeah. But in the real world, she would never be able to pay it off. But I'm guessing she probably had it paid off by 2010.
No, it took her all the way to 2013.
Oh, really? Well, I'm actually
January of 2013, an article pops up saying Hillary has finally retired her debt.
I wonder how many people didn't get paid in that whole thing.
Oh, God, it's so grotesque. And just the idea, I mean, the fundraising stuff is mind-boggling to me that they're able to raise funds on that kind of a scale and then go out and raise funds to pay for your own debt.
Wow.
Like, don't you feel dirty?
You would think, especially if you were a miserable failure who lost to a backbencher of a senator in 2008 and a reality TV show host in 2016. Trump is going on this victory tour, this thank you tour. She should go on an apology tour.
Mm-hmm.
She just goes around to all of her donors. I'm sorry, I'm terrible. I'm sorry you wasted your money.
She could just beam in, though, like she did at the DNC.
Why am I not 25 points ahead, you man?
Why do I still have $100,000 left in my campaign coffers?
Oh.
After 2008, when I went into $25 million in debt to lose.
I'd be thinking during that whole party, why didn't you spend this $100,000 in Wisconsin?
Right. Right. Why didn't you give it to David Brock?
Right.
Take his advice. And run as an underdog in a rampantly sexist country with extreme media bias.
Let's bring on Pat Caddell.
Okay, cool.
Enough already!
Pat Caddell joins us. How are you, Pat?
Good. How are y'all?
Fantastic. Well, let's talk a little. We haven't talked since the election. A lot of things have happened, obviously. Give us your take. Who's to blame for Hillary Clinton's loss?
Well, I think, first of all, the first person that's to blame for Hillary's loss is Hillary. I think that, she was always in the Democratic Party. First of all, why did they just clear the decks for her to put a nominee with her weaknesses in to run, to clear the field, given her corruptions, given everything else, and then, of course, all of her own weaknesses. At a time when the country wanted change and you get her, she lost a campaign where she outspent her opponent by gigantic amounts of money. As did her party, she had the entire national press with her, and she lost the Electoral College to a man who ran a campaign at moments looked like a suicide mission, but who was on the right themes, and by the way, who had never served in the military or in public office, which was a stunning result. Now, no one in the press, and most of all, though, I wrote this the Monday before the election on Fox.com because I wanted to get it in, called "The Real November Surprise?" The uprising of the American people, which argued that the evidence was there, and I was seeing it then. That argued that given the attitudes in the country, that the people that I was most following. Because the polls were so bad, not because they just were wrong, particularly in the States, but because they didn't ask anything, any in-depth questions. Since early October, and I think I might have mentioned this on an earlier podcast, I said I felt the election would be decided when I did my last Smith poll in early October, our update, that it would be decided by those voters who dislike or were unfavorable to both candidates, but who were most overwhelmingly for change. They thought the system was corrupt, all of these things, and that I thought that there was a good chance that and that they were highly undecided, that they would vote for Trump. And they did. And that was clear to me that when I saw the exit polls on Monday night, on Tuesday, 5:35 when we got them, 5:35, 15, whatever it was when we got them. And everyone was still saying, well, the exit polls are always wrong. They're always pro-democratic because that problem is known, and they're never right. There always is a huge bias. Because of the way their interviewers do it, who agrees to answer questions. And, but it showed that the people who were in favor of both candidates were voting for Trump by about 15, 16 points, which they had him. I'm going, if he's winning that by 15, I had this argument with Fox, with our analysts. Not an argument, a discussion. And I also told the chairman, and frankly, I told Trump, if this is my feeling on this, is these exit polls are off, this is going to be very, very tight, and that is the most decisive thing. They ended up voting for Trump by over 20 points. So all of that you could know was coming, but these campaigns have been millions of dollars. The polling was terrible in the Clinton campaign. I don't think it was terrible in the media, but also they just didn't want to believe it anyway. They wouldn't have believed it anyway. And that media, but I've never seen such forces arrayed against one candidate who had such problems and yet prevailed. It wasn't just a Trump one. The American people were, as I had said to you all before and said over and over again, the country was rising up, and they did. And they elected Trump.
And now, Pat, we know that you still talk to some Democrats. I'm interested to know what they're saying behind the scenes. Do they really believe the Russians interfered to the point of elevating Trump for the win?
No, this is they're part of their continual effort not to surrender, really, Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pardon me. And they are in the opinion that if they can continue this stuff, it's outrageous, really. It was one source leaked out of the CIA, New York Times, Washington Post, treated like gospel. No one has seen those reports publicly. Mm-hmm. They disagreed with by Clapper, who's the head of all intelligence agencies, coordinator, the FBI, everyone. There's no way that happened. Well, no one's asking the question of is, hey, wait a minute. I don't care who hacked the emails. It's the people who wrote them and what they said. Mm-hmm. Are you arguing that was a problem, that the American people got some exposure to that? Let me tell you what wasn't covered. That the media never, the Washington Post, despite putting 20 people on Trump, did nothing with Hillary Clinton and the foundation practically, or the true depths of the email scandal. All these stories you would have thought real political reporters would have found. The brand thing was devastating. But look, did they run anything on the revelations which led to the resignation of a DNC employee in that group for putting protesters, organizing protests at Trump rallies and trying to rig the election? If that had been a Republican, that would have been the entire election. It would have been Watergate 2. None of that was covered. This is all the same crap going on, which is one side. And let me say something about hacking and foreign governments. I'm less concerned the DNC got hacked, frankly, than I am that the entire military structure of the United States, the millions and millions of former workers, health records and everything, the Chinese have taken out everything. Mm-hmm. And our businesses and whatever, our secrets. And nobody said Obama didn't seem to care much about that stuff, and neither did the Democrats. To listen to Harry Reid today is to listen to a madman. the most partisan, and I believe divisive, and the worst majority leader in history of the United States, who was a confirmed, it was an admitted, self-admitted liar, mm-hmm. who will say anything partisan-wise, and who runs one of the most corrupt machines in America in Nevada, where he and his son too have profited by millions of dollars mm-hmm. from illegal deals, which the LA Times wrote about a decade ago, and nobody has bothered to follow up on. I am just tired, and so is the country, of one-sided hypocrisy. I mean, there's plenty to say about the Republicans and their terrible consultants and the waste, the money that got wasted this year as usual, and so on. But the Democrats just didn't lose the presidential. They didn't win in the Senate that they expected to win. They didn't win in the House, and they got clobbered at the local levels. The party was wiped out. You can't just look at the presidential election. And yet that's where they're focused. Oh, the Russians did it. Any excuse possible by people who cannot possibly deal with the truth and admit their own failures. And the media, excuse me, who is in the media, which has shown no interest in learning anything from what they did and have doubled down to have total war with Trump from day one. And their sanctimonious behavior, because they didn't care much about the Chinese hacking either. They didn't care at all about what was the attempt to rig the election with that James O'Keefe and uncovered and stuff. None of that. And they did nothing to deal with the issue of corruption. So, that's how I think about it. I mean, I think that this is the worst example. I don't know in my lifetime I've seen worse excuses than this one for their behavior.
Well, you keep looking for maybe some evidence of the Democrats learning from this election, and you see what happened in the House and the Senate. Let's talk about the Senate quickly, because you brought up Harry Reid. You've got Chuck Schumer now filling in, for Harry Reid. Do you see anything changing out of Democrats in the Senate?
Yeah, I think Schumer's smarter than Reid. I don't think Schumer is illicit as or is such a nefarious character as Harry Reid is, or dishonest. Not that he's particularly honest, and he's owned by Wall Street. Most of the Democratic leadership is, and the entire Republican Party for the most part, but Donald Trump. Pardon me, I have a cold, and talking this much is irritating my cough. But I will tell you this: I mean, so I think that there will be some efforts, but they're going to try to fight everything. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of Obama's cabinet selections were confirmed on the day before his inauguration, or at least before his inauguration. Trump will have a problem getting that. The Democrats will fight it every inch of the way. They better pick their fights, because now they're trying to do everything, and I guess they'll go after the Secretary of State, but I think that's not working so well, the Tillerson appointment. But they are going to go after on race. So they've learned nothing. They still want to have identity politics. What is clear to me, and what the data, and since, I need to, I'll answer this question, but these Senate races, I kept saying this. What is everyone talking about? There is nothing in the structural attitudes about what people feel about the economy, what they feel about where the country is, or any of the host of issues, sanctuary cities, Iran, foreign policy, that would lead you to believe that for any reason, why do they think the Democrats are going to win a landslide in the Senate? There's no evidence for it. Based on what? On wishful thinking. But they can, and that is them and the media. We can ignore what the reality is. And so do the Republicans, by the way, the party itself. And the leadership in Congress, they have no clue what happened. And and what the country wants is they want the political class thrown out. Trump will have to deal with that issue and see how that works, because there's going to be some real conflict coming. But in any event, let me just say this about no one learning anything. I was right about the election. Political Insiders, probably the best show on television, regularly pointing out for months what the condition of the country and why Trump might be able to win, and the revolution coming. I'm hoping we get back on the air. We have not been on since the Sunday after election. The world has not beaten a path to my door to say, oh my God, what did you know that we didn't? What did we learn? They are doing what all people do in these situations, which is cognitive dissonance. If we all fail together, then nobody is to blame. And then we don't have to change our thinking. And what I'm noticing is that's what's happening. The media's learned nothing, and they're back to the same biased coverage that they were doing before, which is the reason the country, I had a poll I discussed before the election, but I put on some questions on the Gravis polling for Breitbart on whether or not the media's bias was and a majority of Americans, including large numbers of Hillary's people, believe that it was a fundamental threat to American democracy and to the right and the people's right to know. They're talking about Trump being a danger. They're the danger. They're the people. The reason that fake news is there is because no one believes the mainstream media, who practice fake news all the time, as they did in this election. Bias, fake news. They've been doing this since Rathergate and before. And they continue on their narratives by the super educated, totally unqualified, and people without any experience in life, bunch of college graduates who claim to be political reporters on television or whatever, and then every hack they can find who endorses their narrative. CNN's normal procedure is, we'll get a Republican, we have Anna Navarro, or we'll get her or whoever hates Trump. That's our Republican, and 3 liberal Democrats. And sometimes they put on somebody who you've never heard of for Trump. MSNBC, the same thing. Their idea of balance and the Sunday shows. Let me tell you something. Watching Stephanopoulos and I just, here's the problem. Conservatives are there's this being, I shouldn't use it. They're such pussycats. If that's a polite way to put what I want to say. When it comes to pushing back, they don't know how to fight any more than, a man with both hands tied behind his back. They are spineless. They should have been attacking Chuck Todd and Stephanopoulos, who were making this FBI, this orchestrated leak by the New York Times and the Washington Post, on one unnamed source as the issue of the century. And these are guys, Stephanopoulos, Mr. Crook, Mr. I give money to the foundation. I've been on the phone with Rahm Emanuel every day. He was chief of staff, whatever. I'm a that's ABC's idea of a journalist, and embarrassed that he'd given money and was exposed. He gave money to the Clinton Foundation and then was attacking people who were raising questions about the foundation, trying to buy his way back into good graces after he stabbed Bill Clinton in the back after he left the White House. He's a man of real character, I got to tell you. Just a slimy little twerp, He is, and again, this self-serving. These people they picked to do this. But, by the way, did anyone say to Chuck Todd or to him, where were you during the Chinese hacking when literally millions of federal employees had their records and health records challenged, when they were taking our defense secrets? Their hacking has been much more dangerous and Obama laying down with the Chinese and Microsoft, the rest of them, Bill Gates, with their paws up in the air, lap dogs that they are for the Chinese. Well, the country's had it with that too. But they are going to continue in there. This is the moment when anyone who had the resources could enter the media fray, or the new media fray as it is, or the new media, and create a powerful multi-billion-dollar success by being the real opposition voice to the mainstream media and the voice of the American people rather than Washington.
Well, do you see that happening?
I don't know. It's early. Okay. I'm going to probably try to do some writing. Not that anyone will care what I say, I guess. But, there's nothing like being, as I like to say, the humility you learn about being prophets without honor in your own thing. But the reason there is these people cannot admit why they were wrong. They can't.
That's what I wanted to ask you, Pat. I don't know if you had the chance to listen to the campaign roundtable that was held at the Kennedy School, the entire 2.5 hours.
I haven't. I've got the whole thing to listen to, which when I'm away this weekend, I'm going to try to listen to this, actually.
I think you're going to be stunned.
I know I've already read enough to know I'm going to be stunned. All I know is all you have to do is look at the moderators. There wasn't, Can you believe this? Not a single person from Fox was allowed to moderate. The largest cable, it's all CNN, MSNBC, and those crap, and the same hacks, the same people from New York. It is a loaded panel. But what I've heard already is just unbelievable. And that's what I really want to counterface off on, because that is a joke. It wasn't the fight over with Kellyanne and Conway and that idiot Palmieri and Mook or whatever. The real thing is how none of these people, they still don't know what happened, but they don't want to know what happened. Right. Oh, well, the racist came out. Or as Dan Jones said election night, this is a white lash. You know, as 200 counties that voted for Barack Obama voted for Donald Trump. The formerly enlightened people were now racist. He's on TV all the time. He did a special the other day about healing America, which was one of the funniest things. It had to be seen to be believed. I was in stitches. Because his idea was to have Anna Navarro, Rick Santorum, and then Michael Moore, who said, not bring the country, let's go to total war. This is the Democratic Party doesn't understand how close to both parties. We are in a political realignment. The Democrats are in danger, and so are the Republican establishment Republicans, unless Donald Trump wants to prop them up at his own cause, because their voters didn't want them. The Anna Navarros, the Bushies, all those people, nobody wants the people who are out there. And they are all those people who endorsed Trump against her, Republicans and foreign policy people and whatever. Hey, Trump should have lost by 20 points or 20 or 30 points. But nobody could see he never fell down enough for that to happen. And they keep rooting it along because that's what they wanted to believe. So that you end up in election. Apparently, I'll tell you what I really want to argue for someone do it. After I heard it, because I was very busy election night working on the actual numbers myself and seeing what was taking everybody else so much time to call was evident. But when, the lady, the female reporter who will go unnamed to protect her guilt, of ABC, who got to host a presidential debate last time and a vice presidential debate this time. It could be Martha Raddatz, but I wouldn't say so. Crying on election night, weeping on the air. I think if I could do it, because nobody could watch everything, I would put together one of those, get from YouTube or whatever, because you're not going to get networks, but put together a compendium of the entire election coverage in each network on the cables, okay? And so you could buy the whole thing, and at your leisure, you could watch the election night you didn't see and watch how stupid they are. I bet you it would be a bestseller by far. And then you could have a thing of the best hits out of it, the whole bit. And it can make millions, because that's what people should be doing. They should be laughing at these people every minute. As I
found some of those, Pat. I'll send them to you so you can watch them.
Oh, I can't. Oh, please. I would desperately love to see them. Because I think that this is what we've got to do. We have to start back by in the beginning of the year. There needs to be a counteroffensive. And if I can get a platform, I try to want to lead it. I just certainly want to be a voice in it, because over what happened and what is happening now. Because they do not understand what I said in that piece I wrote in Fox.com on the Monday before the election, which would, and I put it up against anything anybody else said. Because there was a whole rationale to it. I would tell you this, in having done that, is that as I wrote in there, this isn't the end of something. This is only the beginning. And Trump could be dumped out as fast as he was put in if he fails people. This is not, no one's enamored with him they are happy that there is change. It better be delivered. And he's going to have a problem the minute they get to the issue of trade and immigration. Because if they think, unless he's got enough force going on, those guys are going to screw him to the wall to deliver globalization to America which is who they are owned by and what they believe. And you need somebody who can say that about the Republicans and speak truth about the Democrats and the media. I think it's a wonderful, I think that there's a vacuum there that needs to be filled, which is called, how about the facts and how about the truth?
That would be nice. And I did have one more question, Pat, because right before the campaign panel at the Kennedy School, they had Nate Silver do 15-minute kind of autopsy.
Really? That I have to hear.
Oh, it's fascinating. Do you know what he didn't mention once in this entire what swung the election conversation? The letters that went out at the end of October, beginning of November, announcing Obamacare premium increases or complete loss of coverage.
Oh no, he didn't have. He didn't know any of that, and that's a very important point. This is a man who just wrote something now, just saying, "Oh, it must have been the Comey thing." Mm-hmm. Trump was moving before the Comey memo came. Mm-hmm. Nobody was paying attention to the dynamics and also how bad the polling was. The states and stuff. Except for Larry Sabatos, and our whole models failed because all these polls were wrong. Because it was based on polls. Nate Silver is the man who said the Chicago Cubs have as much chance of winning the World Series as Donald Trump did of being elected. Mm-hmm. And he's the man they had come do the analysis of the election.
Yes.
I mean,
it's stunning.
What does that tell you? It's stunning. I mean, really, he shouldn't even, if I were him, I wouldn't appear in public. Exactly what I predicted in 12. He was going to get his ass handed to him. Partly because he doesn't know what he's talking about politics. And he thinks he had it, and he was going to get, and sure enough, that's what happened. They had no way of making a judgment because he knows nothing about polling and nothing about real politics.
Well, he's hanging his hat on the fact that he gave Trump something like a 30% chance when you had people at the Huffington Post giving him Hillary a 98% chance. The day before the election day saying she was going to win. Mm-hmm. Most of the campaign, he had Trump in nowhere. Yes.
And, really? Yeah, right. I'll tell you, the only person who was right on modeling was Larry, the political science guy who ran from his own prediction. Said he wouldn't leave his prediction, but said Trump would win based on his modeling. And I'm sorry, I'm losing as I get older. He's a well-known political professor. And he's on TV. And he said, even though he obviously thought Trump could destroy this because he was so terrible, whatever. But in the end, he was right, even if he was running from his own prediction. Although he said he wouldn't withdraw it because it would be, at least he was honest. Mm-hmm. He went with the numbers. The rest of these people just went with whatever they were cooking. And by the way, that's the other thing needs to be talked about, the cooking of some of these polls by the media, including the Wall Street Journal NBC poll, the unethical procedures carried out by some of these polls to reinforce the notion of what they believe the bandwagon that she was going to win, and in which they ended up, of course, fooling themselves. So there you are.
It's truly embarrassing, and it seems like none of them have come to grips with reality, and I don't know that they will.
No, I think that's what's got to be taken on because of this. And we're going to have to end this, I know, but this is the reason. Because for them to admit what happened would be to make a lie of their entire lives and their values. For the media, the political class, these consultants who failed miserably. I mean, money did not matter in politics. I mean, a lot of people going out of business on this crap, but, they should, but they won't. Because they have a vested interest. But for them, it is all you have to read is Barbara Tuchman's The March of Folly to know why they won't. Why is politics the stupidest arena of human endeavor, she says. And in the end of the book, she delivered this series of lectures at West Point. So like those kind of things you read the beginning and the end. You don't have to read all the evidence in between. But she talks about the church and the British losing North America and the United States and U.S. and North America and the United States and Vietnam. It's all because of one thing. People in power, even faced with better alternatives and better truth, will do anything so they do not risk losing because they have changed their mind. They will never admit they're wrong.
Well, Pat, we're recording.
And in this case, it's gigantic. It is as big as it's been historically in history. This is Andrew Jackson all over again.
Does that mean we're going to shut down the Fed?
I wish to God we would. Anyway, yeah. Till next time. I gotta go.
Pat Caddell, everyone.
You.
Thank you, Pat.
Before I start coughing all over you guys.
Enough already!
Well, let's give Ashe a call. See how she's doing.
Okay.
Hey.
There's Ashe. Ashe, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you this or not, but I'm going to anyway. Tracy, I don't know. You follow Ashe on Twitter at Ashe Schow. Ashe is always, it seems like, invited to the most wonderful parties in D.C. It's like she's embassy hopping. It's crazy. How do you do it, Ashe?
Well, it's the holiday season, and I think last year I didn't go to many holiday parties last year, but this year I seem to get a lot of more invites. So trying to go to as many as possible, and they seem to be mostly on the same days. So there might be multiple ones in one day, and you have to choose. But it's been fun. It's just getting to see all kinds of people. Sometimes that's the only time of year I see some people, but it's fun. The embassy party was especially fun because I didn't know anybody there except for my friend Amy, who I went with. And so it was just kind of walking around, seeing the embassy, not knowing anybody. It was kind of a thrill.
Tracy,
Russian embassy, right?
Ecuadorian embassy? Where were you?
Swedish.
Oh. What kind of food they had going?
How were the meatballs?
Lots of herring. The meatballs, I did not have the meatball. I tried one of the sausages, which just tasted like a hot dog. The meatballs, from what I hear, were good. Lots and lots of candy and chocolate. And lots of herring.
Was there any Swedish fish? The gummy kind?
You know what? Oddly, I did not see them. But they might have been in one of the containers of just open candy, and I didn't grab any of that.
You think they would have Swedish fish flavored vodka?
Ugh.
I know.
You know, like, that's something that they should have, that I'm worried they haven't come up with yet, or at least don't serve at embassy parties.
Now, is the place decked out in IKEA furniture? What other stereotypes?
IKEA? Well, no, IKEA did. Yeah, actually, IKEA did partner with them, at least to help host things or to, deck out the furniture. But, like, you sit here and you're like, oh, how many stereotypes can we come up with? But, like, that's really what they did. Like, they were way ahead of you.
Cool.
Do you think they were
just embrace it?
Do you think they were just trolling you guys? Like, let's just come up with a big stereotypical party for the Americans.
Yeah, it's like, these are American people. They don't know any better. So let's just string together a bunch of words they've heard of, and we'll go from there.
Did they have the Swedish chef from the Muppets make a guest appearance?
No.
Next year. They got to up their game.
I just don't know how you go to the Swedish Embassy for a party and not have the meatballs. I don't know how you.
Well, you know me and my lack of food, so that's the main problem. Otherwise, I would have had the meatballs if I, were a person who eats.
Yeah.
Well, I figured maybe you'd have one and you'd be like, I'm stuffed. I can't have a second.
I did the sausage. I've had Swedish meatballs before, so I tried the sausage and I ate one and I was stuffed.
Not gonna touch that. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things you've been writing about over at watchdog.org. You wrote about Title IX, and we've been talking about Title IX for some time, but for people that don't know what Title IX is, can you describe it for people?
Okay, Title IX is a statute that was included in the Education Amendments Act of 1972, which prohibits sex discrimination. Prohibits sex discrimination, but it's been used since then as a weapon, mainly against men and schools. And so it was originally kind of used to, its original intention was to create more opportunities for women in sports, but that quickly became about punishing schools, claiming that it was discrimination if not enough women signed up for sports. So it ceased to be about opportunity and more about parity. So you had, I believe it was a famous case at Brown, where they claimed there must be something wrong with the school, that they're not doing enough to get women interested in sports, because it absolutely could not be that women didn't want to do intramurals or play sports at the same rate as men. No, it must be the school doing something to keep them from wanting to do this. So that was the first time it was used as a weapon. Since then, and especially under Obama in 2011, due to dear colleague letters, which are not laws but regulations that the agency puts out and that schools must follow, or else risk lose funding or an investigation. They put out in 2011 that basically made schools have to adjudicate felony sexual assault much harsher than it had been. And so now what's happening is, if you're accused of sexual assault on a college campus, especially if you're a man accused by a woman, then you're pretty much done, because schools are so afraid to be investigated or to lose their precious funding that they do not include any semblance of effective due process. And therefore, young men don't have a chance to defend themselves from these accusations, and they're getting expelled left and right. Their education, their futures are all being diminished or abolished, all for the sake of pleasing a media that will attack them, or feminists that will attack them, or the federal directives.
So you wrote a piece now saying that you believe that there may be some pushback on Title IX now that we have a President Trump coming into office in January.
Well, I don't have the highest of hopes. Trump has never really specifically mentioned Title IX, and he's mentioned political correctness, and that's basically the extent of it. When he talks about education, or when he picked his education secretary nominee, it was, she's more school choice. That seems to be a bigger focus for him. And that's kind of a problem if nothing's done about Title IX, because it is hurting schools, and it's really just making women, I want to say basket cases at this point, where you have these schools that are telling women that any sexual encounter that you regret or wasn't the most magical evening on earth is now rape. And basically saying that, like, sex has to be this wonderful, amazing, magical, beautiful, wonderful thing. And if it's not, then you were probably raped, and you subconsciously were telling him no, and he didn't pick up on it, and he kept going, and he did it on purpose, and he's a monster because he's a man, and that's what men do. And it needs to be stopped. But Trump really hasn't said a whole lot about it. So even if he does, counteract the Obama administration directives, I think that the culture is so ingrained in these colleges that it's going to take years to fix, if it ever does get fixed, because just because the federal government isn't coming after them, there's still the media and worries about donors and claims that there's some kind of rape school to contend with, that I think the culture is so ingrained that, schools are still going to be treating people this way, still going to be scaring young women and ruining the lives of innocent young men.
I think it's so entrenched. You got 4,400 people that work for the Department of Education. It would be hard enough getting that mentality out of the Department of Education, let alone, colleges, universities throughout the whole country. If you're going to see any kind of pushback, it would probably have to come from the student body, wouldn't it?
It would. And the student body right now, we talked about, the silent majority that elected Trump. Well, there is a very, very vocal minority on campuses that are very much constantly having protests claiming that their schools aren't doing enough for survivors, which is the new term for accusers, where nowadays if you make an accusation, you're automatically a survivor because you're supposed to listen and believe. Columbia just had some giant protest when it's Columbia. No school is probably doing more to destroy the rights of young men than Columbia University. I mean, the only reason that we remember Mattress Girl, Emma Sokowitz, the only reason that her accuser wasn't expelled or whatever is because her story was just that unbelievable. And there was all the other accusers against this guy were even less credible. And then, the very next kid that gets accused immediately gets expelled, despite no evidence that he did anything. And even though the student that was accused by Mattress Girl was found not responsible, the school allowed her to lead marches against him, and it paid for the cleanup of these things and allowed her to harass him, draw naked pictures of him as part of a quote-unquote art project, drag this mattress around, name him in a school paper so his name got out from the university. And the university never once stood up and said, you know what, we found this kid to be not responsible because of this, this, and this, and you need to stop. They didn't do anything. So even though he was found not responsible, he was still branded as a rapist and treated as such because the school was so afraid of going against Solkowitz because she became this national hero.
You could read all of Ashe's work about Title IX. She's written a couple of pieces recently over at watchdog.org. Check it out there. Ashe, before we let you go, you live in the Washington, D.C. area. We're, 5 weeks away from the inauguration. Is it really starting to sink in there in Washington that we're about to inaugurate President Trump?
I haven't heard it at the parties, and I've been working from home, so I've managed to avoid all the crying and the tears and the fear. So I'm not 100% sure. I've definitely seen on Facebook that people are panicking, and Democrats and the left are definitely ramping up their Hillary didn't really lose. It was the Russians. It was fake news. It was voter fraud. It was this. It was that. It was just hilarious. All the things that Trump was saying before the election that were deemed crazy are now their reasons for why Hillary lost.
Okay, well, follow Ashe on Twitter at Ashe Schow. You can check her work out, like I said earlier, at watchdog.org and, of course, the New York Observer. Ashe, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, talk to you then.
Well, Tracy, you have anything else you want to talk about?
There was the little story out of Detroit, Michigan that I think we should at least gloss over. Maybe we can get into it a little bit more next week if it's still of any import. But I don't think it's going to get much coverage. That 37% of the precincts in Detroit had too many votes.
Oops.
Yeah. But Donald Trump is being completely irresponsible and totally lying when he says there were millions of fraudulent votes in this election cycle. So the most glaring example of this being one precinct in which there were recorded votes in excess of 360, I want to say. And when they opened up the machine, they found a whopping 50 ballots. So somebody either ran each one of those ballots 60 times a piece, or they just picked one and ran that one 300 something times. So it's just outrageous. But thankfully, there's going to be some kind of an investigation into this. It's just absolutely stunning.
Here, I finally figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it just hit me.
Yes.
Jill Stein and her recount effort, it really wasn't out there to expose some sort of Russian hacking or that the Trump campaign somehow cooked the books. It was all to expose Democratic Party voter fraud. That's what it all was about, Tracy.
Oh, well, that was brilliant.
Yeah. Well done, Jill Stein.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, nobody's talking about this story, really.
Of course not.
You have to dig for this and say, wait a minute, there were multiple precincts inside Wayne County, which, according to Fingers, is Detroit.
Yes.
Which you wouldn't know if you didn't live in the state.
Yeah.
That there was a huge discrepancy in a lot of these precincts. And they break it down by how many votes, it was off. This percentage had, more than one vote off. So they give for the entire state, Detroit, which has 662 precincts. 236 of those precincts had the numbers equaled. So the machine total equaled the number of hard ballots.
Mm-hmm.
So that's less than half. 248 precincts had too many votes with no explanation. So 77, there was just one vote off, which you can kind of understand. 62, right. There were 2 votes off. 37, there were 3. 20, there were 4. And 52, there were 5 or more over the count. 52.
Well,
and then there were some precincts with too few votes. So I don't know how any of this happens.
And it wasn't just in Wayne County, Genesee County,
right.
Which is Flint. I believe the number wasn't as high. I think it was like 11%.
Well, they're saying 14 because 14? What happens is when these numbers don't match, they can't be counted in the recount. But whatever numbers were turned in on election night stand.
Mm-hmm.
So these fudged numbers get put into the totals.
Wow.
And hopefully there'll be some recourse. I don't know what you do about this stuff because I don't like the idea of living in a we record everything, there's cameras everywhere kind of world. But how else do you keep this stuff from happening?
Well, clearly the answer, Tracy, is for everyone to be able to vote online at home. That would solve all of these problems. Right.
But if you have to then put in some kind of security measure there. So what are we going to retinal scan everybody or fingerprint?
Oh, you could just trust people.
Oh, right.
To not trust them, you're a racist and a sexist, Tracy, to think that there would be any kind of voter fraud if we could all vote at home.
Oh, man. It's so ridiculous. But this would never have come up, I don't believe, without Jill Stein.
No.
And her silly quest, which has been completely shut down at this point.
We have to thank Jill.
Thank you, Dr. Stein. Keep up the good work, please.
Oh, my goodness. Well, anything else?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Okay. Well, we want to thank Pat Caddell for joining us and, of course, Ashe Schow as well. Tracy, where can everyone find the Enough Already podcast?
You can subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud. You can interact with us on Facebook, or you can visit the website, enoughalreadypodcast.com.
Music for the Enough Already podcast is provided to us courtesy of YoPaulyMusic.com. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening, and we will be back next week with an all-new Enough Already podcast.